Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast for another deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going deep today
Uh-oh.
into a really dark chapter.
Hmm.
Unit 731.
It's a story that I think is really important, but doesn't get the attention it deserves.
Yeah, it kind of gets overshadowed by the bigger picture of World War II,
Yeah.
but what happened there is just chilling.
It really is. I mean, one of the things that really, I think, gets me about it is just how calculated it all was.
Right,
This wasn't just like a couple of rogue scientists doing something crazy.
right.
This was a whole program,
Yeah.
huge program with a ton of people involved.
Sanctioned by the state,
Yeah, yeah.
and the world had already said no to biological warfare
Mm-hmm.
with the Geneva Protocol.
Back in 1925.
So they knew they were crossing a line.
Right, they knew, and they did it anyway.
Yeah,
I think one thing that's interesting is how they tried to kind of use the loopholes. In the Geneva Protocol, they said it only stopped people from using biological weapons, not researching them.
right, which is like, come on.
A flimsy excuse.
Yeah.
At best.
But they needed to keep up appearances
Right.
of legality, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, they found the perfect cover for all this.
Manchuria.
Manchuria, yeah.
Isolated, under their control.
Yeah,
And they had people there that they saw as expendable.
right.
Tragically.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And they built this whole facility disguised as a lumber mill
A lumber mill, yeah.
with over 150 buildings
Huge.
holding 600 prisoners.
And they called them logs.
Yeah, the logs.
It's so mess up.
It is. It's like they were trying to make them less than human.
Exactly.
Like a piece of wood.
Just an object.
Yeah.
It's dehumanizing.
Yeah, it is.
And it probably helped them distance themselves from what they were doing, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like a coping mechanism.
So they could pretend they were scientists.
Doing research?
Not monsters.
Yeah, right?
But the experiments were just beyond.
Gruesome.
Yeah, vivisection.
Without anesthesia.
Disease injections.
Frostbite tests.
Weapons testing.
Yeah.
It's just unimaginable.
They were really pushing the limits.
Of human suffering.
Yeah.
They infected people with plague.
Cholera.
Yeah.
All kinds of pathogens.
Belly ones.
They put them in extreme temperatures.
High altitudes.
Expose them to chemical weapons.
It's hard to even grasp.
Yeah, it is.
The cruelty.
The total lack of respect for human life.
Yeah.
You know, I was reading about this one experiment.
Oh, yeah.
It was about frostbite.
Okay.
And they would take prisoners outside in the winter
It gets cold there.
and dunk their limbs in ice water until they were totally frozen solid.
Oh, God.
And then they would hit them with a stick.
Oh.
Yeah, they were trying to measure the sound.
To see how frozen they were.
I guess so.
Sickening.
To figure out the resistance index of frostbite, they called it.
Unbelievable. These were real people.
With families.
Men, women.
Children.
Children, yeah.
And their suffering didn't end there.
Right.
They also developed biological weapons, like plague-infected fleas.
Oh, wow.
And bombs to spread all this stuff.
Really?
Yeah, they used them on Chinese cities.
How many people died?
Hundreds of thousands. Just
Wow.
war crimes.
Definitely. And it wasn't just the Chinese.
Right.
Russians.
Mongolians.
Koreans.
Anyone they could get their hands on.
Really?
Yeah.
There was even an escape attempt.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a group of prisoners.
They didn't make it, did they?
No.
I didn't think so.
It was a desperate attempt
Yeah.
to get out of that hellhole.
Makes sense.
But it just goes to show how hopeless their situation was.
Absolutely.
Even if they'd gotten out of the facility.
Where would they go?
Yeah, exactly.
Get around it.
Now, before we go any further,
Yeah.
don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Oh, yeah, tell them.
If you like hearing these stories,
From history
make sure you don't miss any.
of our deep dives.
Right. Now back to Unit 731.
Okay.
So the war's coming to an end,
Right.
and they knew they had to cover their tracks.
Yeah, they started destroying evidence.
Murdering the remaining prisoners,
Burning documents.
trying to erase their crimes.
But it didn't work, did it?
Not completely.
Yeah.
But then things get really interesting.
What do you mean?
The Cold War starts,
Right?
and the U.S. sees the value in Unit 731's research.
Because of biological warfare.
Yeah.
So what did they do?
They made a deal.
Oh, no.
Immunity.
For the scientists.
In exchange for their data.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So they got away with it.
Pretty much.
Just like that.
Well, there were some Soviet trials.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Khabarovsk.
Okay.
12 members of Unit 731 were convicted.
What happened to them?
The sentences were pretty lenient,
Oh!
and eventually they were sent back to Japan.
In exchange for what?
More information, of course,
It just gets more and more morally messed up.
doesn't it?
It really does.
It's just layer upon layer.
Of bad choices
Yeah,
from everyone.
it seems like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is a story that makes you think,
For sure.
about accountability,
Yeah.
justice,
Yeah.
what people are willing to do.
Right, like what compromises they'll make
Yeah.
for national security.
In the name of national security.
Yeah, and it's not just like a history thing.
No.
It still matters today.
Right, like with international relations.
Yeah,
And the whole debate about using data.
from those experiments.
Right.
Like, is it okay to use that information?
Yeah,
Even though it came from such awful acts.
right.
Japan still hasn't really owned up to it either.
No, they haven't.
And it's still causing problems.
With their neighbors.
Like China and Korea,
Yeah,
they want a real apology.
right.
And they want reparations for the victims
Makes sense.
and their families.
And they want all the information.
About what happened in Unit 731.
Yeah.
It's like there's this open wound.
That hasn't healed.
Yeah, like unresolved trauma.
Exactly.
And it's not just political.
No.
The scientists and doctors are still arguing about it.
The data. Yeah.
Like, is it tainted?
Right.
Can you even use it?
Some people say no.
That it's morally wrong.
Yeah.
But others say it could help people.
Save lives even.
Like, if it could lead to new medical discoveries.
Right.
It's a tough one.
It really is.
How do you weigh those two things?
The good and the bad.
Yeah.
Like the benefits to humanity.
Against how it was obtained.
It's like a moral dilemma.
Yeah.
And bioethicists are still debating it.
What do they say?
Well, there's no easy answer.
Figures.
It depends on the specifics.
Okay.
Like what the data is,
Yeah.
what it could be used for.
And the risks.
Right.
But it's not just about the data, is it?
No, it's about the victims,
Yeah.
their families.
Getting the truth out there.
Reconciliation.
That's got to be important.
Yeah, their stories need to be told.
So people know what happened.
And acknowledge their suffering.
That they weren't forgotten.
Right. Yeah.
And the people responsible
They need to be held accountable.
for what they did.
It's about basic human dignity.
And justice.
Yeah.
But for so long, they tried to hide it all.
Yeah, a conspiracy of silence.
Destroyed documents.
Demolish the facilities.
Everyone had to keep quiet.
Trying to erase history.
But it came out anyway.
And if they...
Survivors told their stories.
Yeah.
Historians and journalists put the pieces together.
Like a puzzle.
Yeah.
And now more people are demanding justice.
That's good.
It is.
You know what really gets me, though?
What's that?
How so many of them just...
Got away with it.
Yeah.
I know. But
They went on to have normal lives.
careers,
Like doctors.
professors.
Even politicians.
It's crazy.
And they never had to face any consequences.
For what they did. Yeah.
Hard to wrap your head around.
It really is.
How could they just reintegrate back into society?
Like, it never happened.
Be respected members of the community.
It makes me angry.
I understand.
Like, their past was just erased
But for the victim,
from their families.
it wasn't erased.
No.
They still live with it.
The trauma,
The pain.
the loss.
It never goes away.
And they never got justice.
No.
That's why we have to keep talking about it.
Right.
Keep their memory alive.
So they're not forgotten.
And demand justice.
Yeah.
Because if we stay silent,
We're complicit.
and forgetting is like betraying them.
It is.
What really hits me about Unit 731
Yeah.
is how it makes you think about science.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we think of it as a good thing to
Ah.
help people,
Progress.
but this shows the dark side.
Yeah.
That it can be used for evil.
Knowledge without conscience.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
These were smart people.
Very skilled. They could have done amazing things.
They're brilliant.
But their ideology was twisted.
They thought they were superior.
And they didn't care about others.
Yeah. They dehumanized them.
It's scary.
It is.
Because it shows that anyone can be cruel.
Any society.
Even the most advanced ones.
With the most educated people.
That's a lesson we can't forget.
No, we can't.
We always have to be careful.
Question things.
Challenge authority.
Stand up for what's right.
For human rights.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though.
What's that?
Could it happen again?
Unit 731.
Yeah.
I mean, things are different now.
But we have even more advanced technology.
And weapons.
So are we really safe from something like that?
It's a good question.
And a scary one.
Yeah.
I mean, the specifics were unique.
To that time and place.
But the things that made it possible.
Nationalism.
Militarism.
Dehumanization.
The desire for power.
At any cost.
Those things are still around.
Yeah, they are.
So what can we do?
To stop it from happening again,
Yeah.
well, we have to learn from the past.
By understanding it.
Right. Education is key.
Yeah.
We have to teach people to think critically
Okay.
and to have empathy for others.
And to respect human rights.
Absolutely.
And we have to hold people accountable.
Especially those in power.
Right.
They have to answer to the people.
Yeah.
And they have to be held to high ethical standards.
We can't just sit back and do nothing.
No, we can't.
We have to be vigilant.
To protect human rights.
And make the world a better place. More equitable.
Unit 731 shows us what can happen.
When we let things go unchecked.
When we don't stand up for what's right.
When we forget about compassion.
And human dignity.
Yeah.
It's a heavy topic.
It is.
And it can feel overwhelming.
Like, what can we even do?
But we can't ignore it.
No.
We have to face it. Learn from it.
So that it never happens again.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a daunting task, for sure.
But I think we can do it.
I do too.
I mean, we see it all the time in history.
People who stand up for what's right.
Yeah. Even in the darkest times.
When it seems like all hope is lost.
They refuse to be part of it.
Yeah, they resist.
And those stories matter.
Just as much as the stories of the bad guys.
They give us hope.
That we can be better.
Yeah, that we can choose a different path.
Even when surrounded by evil.
Be brave.
Have compassion.
Act with integrity.
Exactly.
You know, one thing that really got to me
What's that?
about Unit 731
Yeah.
was just how big it was.
The scale.
Yeah.
It was huge.
It wasn't just a few bad apples.
No, it was systematic.
This was a whole program.
Of human experimentation.
And biological warfare.
It's crazy how a whole society
can get caught up in something like that.
Yeah, a dangerous ideology.
It's like they lost their moral compass.
Blinded by ambition.
And wartime fervor.
It makes you think about responsibility.
Individual responsibility.
Yeah, like how could all those people
go along with it?
The doctors, the scientists, the soldiers.
Were they just following orders?
Or were they choosing to be a part of it?
It's a tough question.
It really is.
And there's probably not one answer.
No, it's complex.
But even in extreme situations.
People still have a choice.
To follow orders.
Or to resist.
To dehumanize.
Or to see the humanity in others.
And those choices matter.
They have consequences.
Not just for the victims.
But for the people who make them.
Yeah, even if they never face trial.
They still have to live with it.
With the moral consequences.
The guilt.
The shame.
The knowledge of what they did.
It's like a scar.
On their soul.
That never fully heals.
A reminder that some things.
Can't be justified.
No matter what.
Not by power.
Not by knowledge.
Not even by victory.
You can't sacrifice human dignity.
Or compassion.
For anything.
And, you know, it's just disturbing.
How it is.
How many of them just...
went back to normal life.
Yeah, after the war.
Like nothing happened. Professors.
Researchers.
Even politicians.
Never facing any real consequences.
It's hard to comprehend.
It really is.
Like how can someone do those things?
And then just be accepted back into society.
Hold positions of authority.
Be respected.
It's like their past was erased.
But it wasn't erased for the victims.
Or their families.
Now.
They still carry the pain.
And the trauma. The loss.
It never really goes away.
And that's why we can't let this be forgotten.
We have to keep telling these stories.
To honor the victims.
To demand accountability.
To fight for justice.
Because silence is complicity.
And forgetting is betrayal.
It's a reminder that the fight for justice
near ends.
It's a constant struggle
against the forces of darkness.
Trying to silence the truth.
To erase the past.
But it's a fight worth fighting.
Because it's a fight for our humanity.
For the kind of world we want to live in.
Where things like this can't happen again.
Unit 731 is a dark chapter.
In human history.
But it's a reminder to be vigilant.
To speak out against injustice.
To fight for a better world.
A more just world.
A more compassionate world.
Thanks for joining us.
On this journey.
It was tough.
But important.
By talking about Unit 731.
We can help make sure
that it never happens again.
And we can honor the victim.
By working towards a world
where justice and compassion win.
That's all for this deep dive.
See you next time.